Hello again, everyone. So this is lesson 3. Lesson 2 we were looking at faces and we were blocking in and the basic tones of a face. This session we're going to take it a little bit further. I've drawn this up and it is in slightly more detail. It's also a female, just to give a bit of variation. So we're going to use the same type of technique with this. The lighting I'm going to be doing this time is a central light towards the face and a bit of a side light coming in from the right as well. The reason I'm putting a central light on it is just so the shadows don't become too harsh, more naturalistic. So what I've done with this is I've got this on a top layer and we're going to work on the one below it. So you can just lock that top layer if you want. Go onto the layer below it using a sort of round brush. You can keep it soft-ish, but don't go too soft with it. The other thing you need to do is the colour picker. You want to put it on about 5x5 average, just so it's averaging out the grades a little bit. And instead of having it sample all layers, you just want it on current layer. That way, when you start painting, you won't be picking up any of this black from here. So it's just a matter of loosely painting in. But luckily, I've got one already, which I'm going to show you in a second. So, one of the issues with doing faces is a lot of these tone changes are going to be extremely slight, especially with someone like on this model who's fairly young, so there's no huge big wrinkles to do or anything like that. So it's managing the tones and getting a very subtle transition. So I did this as well. Right, now this is just, there's no lines in this whatsoever, it's just tone. Can you see with this though, we start changing tone really gradually, get darker and darker, then we stop and then we start going back into the light. And what that does is it's almost like a skateboarding ramp or something like that. It ramps up slowly. So if we were to see this from the side, it would probably look like that. And that's because this tone is describing exactly how it is changing shape as we're going along. This is what I was saying about the tone shouldn't just be something for decoration, it needs to actually communicate depth. This one is fairly similar, but as you can see, because we've got a much brighter highlight here and a much darker shadow, we can deduce from that this is going to be a sort of bigger drop off. So if we do this side view again, it's probably going to be more like that. And also the top of it comes to a complete point as well. So we could change this, in fact, if we just grab this colour and if I make a larger brush and then do this, see that? And all of a sudden we have an edge which falls away. Let's put it a bit further up and see what happens. See? So it's like a step now. So you've got a subtle climb up there and then a flat surface, and this comes in very handy when you're doing portraits, because the change in tone really dictates the topology of the face, I suppose you could call it. See that? So there's going to be a lot of blending involved and stuff like that. Anyhow, I shall show you on one that I've already done, and I'll just go through this and perhaps in some stages just stop it. So I've put a grey coat all over the face. Now I'm establishing the light source, so it's coming from the front, but it is also coming from the sort of model's left hand side of the face. So we're following exactly what we did with the last session, and I'm taking the colours on the left here. I haven't gone too dark with these because I want it to look fairly naturalistic. So just blocking in, and all the time I'm saying that same thing. Is it facing light? Is it moving away from it? But this time, so I've got two light sources, it's a little bit more difficult. You've got like an extra round of questioning. Right, I'm going to zoom forward a little bit because we don't want to get in boring. Oh, that's me putting in the light source. As you can see here, right, so you've got these big blobs of tone. At the moment, this looks like a sack of marbles or something, because they're jutting out an awful lot. Like this cheekbone is really coming out of here. So, and that's because of the tone. The tone is showing you exactly the height of it. So obviously we need to blend in this tonal area a lot better than this. But at the moment it's okay just to get an idea of what's going on. Now I've faded out the lines there. And blocking in. I'm not using any multiply layers, any lightening, darkening. I'm literally just painting. Put the chin in there and then I fade that out again afterwards. Again, the lights come in more from the top, so the top lip's going to get a bit more darkness. You can see this ramp here, just like we did in the first one, but again this is a little bit strong at the moment. Now, I did mess up at one point. You see this? This is a form shadow, i.e. the shadow which is actually on the object. And this is the cast shadow, which is a shadow, if you remember, as the light comes down, it can't reach this area. But what I've done is actually done that darker than the cast shadow, and usually it's the other way around. So you'll see me fix that in a moment. It did take a while, this, probably a couple of hours work. So, see? Light to dark instead. It just reads a lot better. Yeah, so don't worry if it takes you a while, or you know how far you get with it. I sort of had a reference that I looked at literally twice, but I really tried to not look at it at all. But if you're using this, just grab a reference if you want and see if you can apply the same principles. So, yeah, this is me. I'm just making a sphere which is showing you more or less the lighting conditions that we're using. I've put in a core shadow there, a cast shadow, sorry. And if we look, this, but I keep trying to touch the screen, this part of the ball refers to this part of the nose. And if we take the bottom, that cast shadow, you see it's the same type of tone, it's a lot darker. So we continue. Skin is difficult to do because it's luminous, the way it reacts with light. It's not just a matte surface, the light goes underneath the skin layer and then gets reflected back outwards. So this is why you get such a subtle change from light to dark. There are still some sharp edges in here. This nose is still quite sharp, which again is demonstrating the abrupt sort of change in direction. Put the eyes in as well so it didn't look creepy. Now whereabouts are we? This is a problem at the moment. So in a moment what I do, I take the grid off because it's actually doing more harm than good now. Just to see, and the second I take it off I can start to notice some more mistakes. These are occluded shadows. These are the shadows that all this light bouncing around, these are so hidden and tucked under that the light can't even get to them. If you remember from our light and shadow thing at the start of the year, a long time ago. Adding a bit more light and faffing around. And the whole face is looking still fairly flat, so I actually start to put more tone in one side just to bring it into shadow. Right, as you can see here, I've just taken this grid thing away, and we can see we've got an issue here because this just doesn't connect very well. This here is looking a bit woeful because it's actually saying that the nose slants off to that side, so I do fix that. This brow's a little bit light, and this looks like a potato and like she's been punched, so I do go back in and refine an awful lot. This is me pointing out the sharpness of tone. So if you compare how quickly the tone changes like underneath the nose compared to this, See, smooth, very slow changes, big change of direction, therefore a big change of tone. And what I also do is put a Gaussian blur on this now as well. And this helps me not to see the details, but just to see the tone. See? And don't forget, you should be squinting all the time when you're doing tonal work. If you squint as you're looking at this now, it will isolate the tones a lot better. So this is a little while later, and I've actually deepened up the tones. I'm still faffing around with it. I could spend the next 2 years on this. It is blurred out. If I was going to continue with this, I would obviously just start to sharpen up a lot more of the details. And finally, I tried out a few different lighting conditions just to darken it. As you can see, I've darkened this left hand side just to see if the face works in all these different changes of tone, changes of contrast and stuff, and it holds up reasonably well. It's not amazing, but it is using the exact same technique as I showed you in the previous video. So give this one a go if you dare. It is difficult, but like I said, you can use a reference image if you want, and pay attention to that grid that we've got. Just have a look at that grid again. Really pay attention to the areas. Oh, I knew that would work. To the areas that are going away from the light, and the areas that are going towards the light, and obviously the midtones. If you can start to see that, if you can start to go, let's just do this nose bit while I've got a minute. If we can start to go, right, well, this is then sliding down into this colour, like that. You'll really start to get a grip of how to do this. The files will be on Teams, so best of luck. Bye.